You wanna? Is there any paradigm shifting concepts you want to
discuss? Yeah, for sure, man.
Or anything in the news? I don't read the news.
News, actually.
Any interesting?
I did read something this morning. So this morning I was this morning before I went to work, or before we went for a run, I put on the news. When you came to the lounge and it was dark as hell.
Yeah.
A few minutes before you came in, I put on the news. I listened to the news. Little 3-minute thing they do on podcast on Spotify, and I was talking about
news on Spotify.
Yeah, on Spotify. Yes, it's weird, right?
Was it urban news?
No, it's like it's a news platform, and they've got a podcast on Spotify.
Yeah.
And every day they release like 3-4 minute shorts.
Yeah.
And it's like brief updates and stuff.
Okay, now go for it.
And they was talking about in I think it was Myanmar, which is an Asian country somewhere near Thailand. There was a military coup. And basically their military, there's the government in power, or the government who are going to be in power, and there's the military who are also fighting for power.
Okay.
Right. They're different parties, but like one is military based and one is just
the government.
Yeah. And the government, and basically the military disagree with the government, what the government are putting in place, because they won majority of the votes. It's a bit like the Ghana situation, but slight nuances and whatnot. Yeah. But the military basically were unhappy with the government, the governmental rule or whatever.
Yeah.
So they've staged a coup now.
Right.
So they've come into wherever the government are, and they've taken the leader captive.
Right.
And they've now put themselves in power. And they're like, what was about to happen, or the party that was about to win, we disagreed with them and this and that. So they staged the coup and they've taken the leader, and now they're in power. And obviously now it's a bit heated right now, because it's it's gone past democracy. Now it's just, do you know what I mean? It's like at next level. And I listened to that this morning, and I was thinking to myself, like, it's mad how, over a disagreement, like how quickly things can turn, right? Because you've got something which is supposed to be civil, and the people are supposed to get involved with, and all of a sudden you have a party with enough power who believe that what they're doing is right for the country, and they're coming in and using force to take away the leadership and put themselves in that situation. And I was just thinking to myself, like that's a mad abuse of power, man. But then from their point of view, they're using that power for the better will of the country. And again, it's that ethical discussion, right? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, it's a tricky one, and I think. So here's my thing. I think democracy, I think, doesn't have to be a multi-party politics, or doesn't have to conform with how the government, let's say for instance, has been run in the UK or the US. Excuse me. But I think for some reason there's this double standard, or there's this sort of like thing where democracy within the UK or the US or the western part of the world is what every country should strive for. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a mistake, because I think I've said this before. I think the society ultimately determines how things should be run. Not just democracy, with everything else. Do you know what I mean? So for that reason, if you're trying to enforce a certain principle or party principle in a certain country or a certain society, which is very different from, let's say, for instance, like the UK, there's bound to be friction of how things want. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you take, for instance, like Rwanda, let's say, for instance, they got Kagame, who's been in power for 20 plus years, right? If you look at it from the Western lens and how things are being run over here, you'd say that's a kind of like democracy, and something is not quite right. Yeah. But if you're saying democracy and power for the people, and if the people are the ones that actually put them in power, then it's not negative, right? It's like,
it's what do the people want from that country?
That's what the people want. The people want that one party to be in power for 20 plus years. But you can't turn around and say, no, that's not democracy. Democracy is multi-party. So therefore, after a certain number of years, you should leave for someone else to come into power. and that's where there might be an issue. So if that's then been, let's say, for instance, that's being enforced in a country like Rwanda, right? And multi-party policy being informed, like there is multi-party policies, but it's like people are saying no, you shouldn't be for more than 8 years. That's abuse, blah blah
of
blah.
the power,
blah blah blah. Then what would happen is that it will create a bit of friction, and you could potentially get military people coming in to try and stage a coup.